We
Yeah.
played 9 line. Okay, I guess we. And here, keep in mind, if you guys remember the Intero call, keep in mind they're the best team, often known as the best team. EG just lost SI, 2018, right?
They're not happy going into
So
this
they're
season.
pissed. They're
Yeah.
pissed, and they're turned up. They're leaned forward in their chairs. And guess what? We have to play them in fucking 9 line.
Welcome. This is a very, very exciting episode interview with Cookiez, the one, the only NAL analyst. It's been a long time coming on that one, I'm sure. Which you killed it on there, by the way.
Thank you.
So
I shit my pants. Thank you.
this one is going to be a little different than the average interview. Rather than talking about current events, if there's a major on the way, whatever. Nobody cares about the major on the way. I'm here to do some history. It was almost my major. I care a little bit about it. We're gonna go back, dust off the old tomes, pick this man's brain a little bit about it, and talk some earlier years. Because while Cookiez may be one of the most entertaining NAL analysts we have right now, back in the day he was a player, and he played against some good people. So I wanna see what you have to say about this stuff.
Yeah, so I guess my career intersected with a lot of people that you guys may know, a lot of big names, and I guess we have to start from the jump.
Yeah.
If we really want to start,
Wikipedia says that you started in year 1, season 2, but I know, especially in these early days, Wikipedia not always the best for when it comes to like these early days, because it was very much like the dark ages of Siege, right? So where did you actually get your start? Was it really with Lunatic, or was it earlier than that? After that?
It was earlier than that,
Okay.
and I gotta say, so this was like 2016. So I don't think Wikipedia has anything that wasn't Pro League.
Yeah,
like,
they started at 2017 with the first Pro League season.
Yeah,
so any like non-ESL UB circuits, not going to be talked about.
Yeah, so it's like I started. My team played just in I started a team from Reddit. I literally got on Reddit. It's I don't know if the Reddit still exists. It's called like Siege Teams or something. And I was like, guys, I need a team. I'm looking for some people. And sure enough, I met some guys. I mean, at this point, these are some people nobody would know, so I'm not gonna name a whole bunch of names, but just know that's where I met my first teammate, Yellow.
Yeah.
So
he's a longtime teammate too.
But... Yeah, like so that's the beginning of that storyline, I guess, because there is a storyline, but it's like I met him. I met the people from Reddit, and then I met him in ranked, playing with the people from Reddit because they were looking for people in ranked too. So, which is the other thing. It's kind of where you would meet people back then, just in ranked.
Yeah.
You would just.
That's why there's still that whole thing of like .lft in people's name, is because like back then that was actually a legitimate method. Now we shit on it because we're like, just go to a Discord and post in SCS or whatever. But back in the day, that was one of the most effective methods. It's like, oh shit, this guy's cracked. Like, let's pick him up.
Like you could you run across a lot of people in rank. Back then, like all the pros played, actually good players played, so you could just make a team, and that's kind of what we did. We had like a ranked team at first, and then we played in something called the this is so funny, the Bathwater Invitational. Again, not on Wikipedia. This is not Wikipedia. This is if you guys know Bloodbath.
Yeah.
That was a league he ran for the T3 team, or the T3 scene at the time, basically.
Yeah.
So in that league, there was people like Hyper and like people like that were kind of like getting there. They were like 16 at the time. But it's like we played against teams like that, and then the pros at the time, I guess. If you guys remember Enix with
Remorse, I want to say Remorse and Helby are two notable names from back then.
I don't think he was actually on that Enix. The funny thing is that it's that old. But yeah, that's kind of where it started.
Okay.
And then yeah.
So I want to say that you got your big break, and like big by like professional T1 break, with year 2, season 2 on Omen. So this is a team of you, Teamworks, Yellow. I'm dropping some names here, but notably not a lot of names that have like made it on to today's like most legendary players list. But you did have a go of it. You were in Pro League, and what went wrong here? Because like you guys got your break, and I think the only thing the average viewer might remember from this time period is Mint's ace against you guys. Like, what was the difference here? Was it just pro teams are that much better, or like was there internal team stuff? Like, what was the deal?
Um, so I guess in every story there has to be a winner and a loser, right?
Yeah.
And I was actually thinking about this just the other day because I love reminiscing. But back then, obviously we played against a lot of people, and we were ourselves, like you said, like we had like guys who didn't last, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is when you're playing against, like for example, the Challenge League season that qualified us for that, which is controversial in itself, and I'll get to that because that's
right.
the whole.
I didn't realize that.
Because there's a little. If you guys follow the whatever I have with Lycan, that's where it started.
Okay.
Because basically, like we played, if you know Beastly, Biologic, Vandal, and Challenge League the previous season. We played like good at the time, good players, and we ended up losing, like in Challenge League, right? Like finished third. We didn't actually win, but we finished high enough that they were like, okay, we'll qualify you to Pro League.
Okay.
Which, depending on who you ask, you know, I thought we were competitive with all those teams, but we didn't win.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's where it gets kind of blurry, right? So it's like, we went into that Pro League season. Obviously, we had only played one Challenger League season at the time, and we were playing. At the time, I think the format was also like, we came in as the 8th seed.
Okay.
So we had to play like the God Squad right out of the gate. There was no, who were the teams at the time?
I want to say it was like Flipside, Rogue, or no, I think it was Vertical at the time, but same core as Rogue, and then Prime EG, I want to say.
Let me tell you this.
Or no, CTM,
you can open up the Wikipedia, right? I think other than us and like Bittersweet at the time, there were no freebies back then, and people love to say it was a farmers league or whatever. If you look at like literally any of those teams, they have players that were still playing up until like last year. Like
yeah.
It's not like
it's
a bunch
insane talent in that season.
I think people just like they have amnesia about players now. Like someone will have a good stage and like a stage later people forget. But like I definitely think at this point people have forgotten like how good and how structured and how just menacing those teams used to be. Like
Elevate, like Flipside, Vertical with Young, Excellence, which is Fox A and Geo's first team. You had
don't forget my man.
Yeah, my man was a menace back then too. What even happened to him? Did he just disappear?
Yeah, like, he didn't retire because he was bad. I think he just retired because he got tired of the game. Like
fair enough, dude.
But it wasn't because the dude was bad. My man was a menace. Every team was nasty, right? And we got the nastiest of the nasty in Flipside. That was our first game. That's the Mint Ace game you're talking about. We got shit on, right? I mean, I knifed Pojo though.
Hey,
he was on Blackbeard and I knifed him. So there was some good to take away from it. But the truth is, it's like we're a Challenger League team. We're the 8th seed. We're playing a best team right out of the gate. He's been a team for a year at that point. It's like, you know, I wasn't expecting the universe or anything in that first game. But I would say the second game, and that's the other thing, we didn't get that many games. We only played 2 games, right?
Yeah, it was a pretty brutal format back then.
Number 1 Flipside, right? And then we played former world champion CTM. And it was a super version. It was a super team version of CTM that like they picked up some players.
Jarvis and BC.
Jarvis and BC, like fucking C. BC's crazy.
Yeah.
Like Jarvis was ridiculous back. That was when Jarvis is young. Like it's just like no pun intended. He replaced Young.
Yeah,
which was funny.
That was a whole thing in itself. That was a whole saga in itself with Young going over to VG with King George. So.
Yes, so we're playing it basically, and they're angsty as fuck, right? Because they just dropped Young and they're trying to prove themselves. And we're just this Challenge League team still, right? And we almost beat them. We took them 3 maps, by the way. I just want everyone to know
that you did.
That went the distance. Unfortunately, lost.
You won in overtime. Against CTM on border, which
I did. I totally clutched, by the way. I totally had a crazy clutch, but it's whatever. But I don't know. That's just kind of like the thing, right? Our team didn't last or whatever, and the wheels came off. But we were also playing good teams. It wasn't like we were playing bozos, right?
Yeah, it's not like past years in the NAL where it's like Battle of the Trash Can with Mirage, Exet, and Beast Coast all like doing super poorly and 3 super non-competitive teams. This era of Siege was unironically like very competitive from top to bottom. So if you were just like 1 or 2 levels below, you're getting shit stomped like it wasn't even close. Like
we were, I guess we were the team to be farmed because we didn't have. And the thing is, I don't even think we were. I don't know. It's like history remembers us differently, but
Yeah.
like generally speaking, I don't think we weren't as bad as like, for example, where I beef with Lycan. This is where this starts. Okay,
Yeah.
I would touch on this.
All right.
This Lycan was just talking his shit, like, oh, these guys don't deserve to be in pro league and they suck, and they took our because at the time we took theirs because to promote us from Challenge League, they'd take Onslaught's spot. And the problem was they didn't have a relegation game at the time. They just gave us a spot because we finished.
Oh, I see.
Whatever. And that's what Lycan was mad about. And he was constantly saying, oh, you guys suck. You guys don't deserve it. This team is blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, I'm just trying to grind the game, bro. Yeah, I told you about my humble beginnings, bro. All I did was post on Reddit, make a team. And somehow I'm in Pro League a year later.
Yeah.
That's all I was trying to do. And I'm getting shit talk. He wasn't the only one, there's a bunch. But it's just like, sure. I don't think we were. I grinded the game like crazy. I was skipping classes, right, in college.
Yeah.
To make sure that I could, if we had a scrim, my ass was showing up. I treated it like I was a pro, right? And I think we were decently competitive. Like I said, it was just, everybody else was just fucking nuts. Like you said, NA was crazy back then. I mean, NA's always been like,
yeah.
Well, no. Post-COVID NA, maybe not.
Yeah, but like back in the day,
we'll get to that.
I talk to me about Flipside, because this is kind of, for those that don't know, Flipside became Dark Zero, and back in the day, this was kind of like a very talented team, but at the same time, it was always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Like, they got one international showing, and that was NA Loser Boss. That was every NA team going out 0-2 in year 2, season 1. So this team, like, barely got any international play, but it was always one of those top teams. Tell me about, like, this squad and, like, what were they in the time?
They were always... I think they were just way ahead of the curve, which is typically, like, how that works. But, like, basically, Hot and Cold was the crackhead Ash player. Just ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
Just absurd. And then you had... they had just a great support system, I'd say. Mint was just a nerd, a geek. They were the type of team that they pioneered like drone hunting and proning under barricades to shoot your drone before you could like get like just stuff that would just screw you over before you could really get going. And then of course, like, for example, the play where we got shit on in Cafe, right? There's like a whole bunch of analysis there you could do. What Flipside did. They had this pulse below, calling it perfectly, calling the drop perfectly, calling where we were perfectly, intel by deduction, which is one of my favorite things. Like, if you pulse 5 people here, then you can do whatever. And that's just like, I don't know. I think they had that figured out in 2017. That's something like people didn't figure out. Like, people still don't fucking know how to do that shit. But like, back then they did it really well. And I think if we're talking about how brutal it was, like internationally, I mean, back then there was no such thing as like elaborate groups or whatever. Where
it was a blender. You're straight into quarterfinals.
Yeah, like you don't have like 4 teams from the region make it and then have fucking a group that's double GSL. It wasn't like that at the time, so it's like, again, it's like I feel like history was brutal to them too. Because of that, they didn't really have many opportunities to play that many games and like show how good they really were. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of teams that I could say the same type of thing about.
Yeah, because when I think about Flipside, I always think about like the first time op bans were introduced. They were the first motherfuckers that came in, and they were banning hard breachers like instantly, and you could tell every other team was not comfortable with what just happened, and like Flipside was winning these matches. It might have been SK at the time, but like this core was just winning matches solely in solely in op bans, and like they were just introduced for the first time ever, and like they're already on top of this stuff. And yet we never saw that, like, those results to go with it. But
yeah, they were nerds. And they always had, like, some crazy fraggers behind them. Like, even someone, like, not to get too far ahead of, like, someone like Nyx even was just like,
yeah,
you put him in that system, he's good. He's serviceably good, at least.
Yeah, I mean, it brought him to a Pro League Finals, man. Like, that's gotta mean something. Moving on a little bit, I want to talk about Pro League Season 7, because this is Ronin, and this also a pretty rough Pro League season as far as results go, but this brings us to an interesting situation, because I want to say this is the period of time where Nine Line was in the roster, but he was like a sub, but he had to play the entire season, and it was a bit of a mess, right? Talk to me about it.
Okay, I'll talk to you. I'm gonna trauma dump because, okay, so I guess background is always needed.
Yeah.
For everything. So back it up a little bit. It's Challenge League season before that, season 6, I guess. It wasn't called that, but it was season 6.
They changed the system from year blank, season blank to just season at that time period.
Yeah.
Moving into year 3.
I'll make it simple and just say season 6.
Yeah.
I spent a season in Challenge League because my team got, relegated. Team we just talked about, Omen, got relegated, whatever. Yeah. Okay. And then I played in Challenge League. Me and Yellow split. So Yellow goes to Onslaught and wins Challenge League, gets the Pro League spot back. I play in Challenge League on this team called Delete. I'm just like floating around. I had a good season, so good that WBG at the time, who was the team that actually relegated Omen, wanted me to join the team. But that was before they had to win the relegation game against Onslaught, because that's what happened. It was like Challenge League would play Pro League team. That actually was the season that changed.
Yeah.
So Onslaught played the team that I was going to join, and that team had my former teammate on it, and it's like there's a whole lot of layers there. Basically, Onslaught hit the servers on like 7-6 or something, and they went around they shouldn't have, and then they won that relegation game. Okay.
Wow.
Because WG is about to win, my humble opinion. You can watch it back, but there was a very controversial rehost. Okay, and then the team I was going to join basically lost that game. So then I go into obscurity for a little bit, and then Onslaught goes. They have a good little. They make Pro League obviously, and then they have this good little invite qual run where they finish decently close to making SI. Like they were at the time, they were top 4 or 5 team in NA.
Yeah.
At their peak there, and I wasn't on the team yet. Okay, so fast forward a little bit after the qual, they decide they want to drop Penguin. Okay, Penguin.
Not Penguin. Penguin.
Not Penguin. Even though they're both like Canadian, I think. I don't fucking know. Anyway,
different player.
Not to be confused.
Yeah.
Penguin had a shit attitude, and they didn't really like him. Like just full stop.
Yeah.
So they said we're dropping this motherfucker. Okay, even though they had good results, they said we're dropping him. And they also said, hey, we're dropping Lycan. We can pick up Chapstick. This is Chapstick from Elevate, right?
Yeah, this is good Chapstick. He was always good, actually. I'm talking about my ass.
Chap was always good, but I'll get to that too. I'm sure we're gonna get to that part of the story. But yes, they're gonna drop Pingin for me because I'm fun to team with and I'm a great guy, despite what motherfuckers will say. I'm hardworking, a good teammate. They wanted me over Pingin, and then they wanted Chap over Lycan. Okay. Right? So then it would be me, Chap, like direct upgrades for those people, like, and then the team that was top 4, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh shit, we're gonna go into this stage, and then in scrims, like in the tryout scrims I did with them and everything, like we were competing with the other pro league teams just fine, like we were right there. All the scrims were really close. Nobody was blowing us out or anything, right? And then, I shit you not, Fiend, I shit you not. This is where I get so pissed. This is why it's so funny. Chap decides, Counter Logic Gaming, who recently joined the game. This was when all these big orgs started joining too.
Yeah. This is like when EG signed in. This is when EG,
CLG, like Chap leaves for fucking CLG because they're paying him $5,000 something a month at the time, which is absurd.
Wow.
Like considering what the time was.
Yeah.
Right?
That's pretty good even for now, arguably.
Yeah, it is. CLG, I mean, and this is where it's like you can't fault Chap, but at the same time you see where I get fucked.
Yeah.
Chap joined CLG for that salary. And you know what we're making on Ronin?
Yeah.
Yes.
You bring in 9-line, but you're not trying to keep him, you're trying to bring someone else in.
Basically, we were making $300 a month on Ronin.
Oh boy.
CLG's making $5K. Chap says, even though we were arguably better than CLG. Like when we had Chap on Ronin, we were as good as if not better. Like
Okay.
the CLG wasn't even that good that stage. They kind of ass. I ain't gonna lie to you.
They were getting kind of rolled if memory serves.
They
so.
also finished dead last even with Chap, which tells you a lot. But anyway, not here to shit talk CLG. The point is, they fucking took Chap from us, and then they proceeded to be shit. And then that left us with 9line because they had already made. He was on the roster the whole time, like his emergency guy or whatever, which is where that comes in. So we're stuck with 9line because we already made 2 moves for me and Chap, and then Chap left. And then we're stuck.
That. Really?
It's just like, anyway. So I'm just sitting there. I'm like, okay, like 9line, because 9line was like this former military, like really really organized and whatever. But he was not good at the game. Okay, he was good in like year 1 or something.
He's an emergency sub. It's not the
year 1 was Farmers League. And that's where 9line was from. He hadn't played since then, and he was emergency sub. He was Talon's friend or some shit. I don't know. But the point is, we were stuck with his ass, and we were stuck with what we had because they dropped Ping, and he was already done. He's not coming back.
Yeah.
Right. And the roster, the way that works is so weird too.
Weird system, weird rulings and rule books.
And you can just imagine how I feel like at the time. I'm just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
They play 9line? Okay, I guess. And here, keep in mind, if you guys remember the Intero call, keep in mind they're the best team, often known as the best team. EG just lost SI 2018, right?
They're not happy going into
this season. So they're pissed. They're pissed. And they're turned up. They're leaned forward in their chairs. And guess what? We have to play them fucking 9line.
Oh,
and Chap just left us, like, he literally left like a week before the season.
Wow.
So we're like, okay, we get Prime EG pissed off after a final, after our teammate, one of our key part, like this key support player, leader on our team, just leaves.
He was the IGL
and we have
too?
to just. He was so. Chap's thing is he has really good comms. Like.
Okay.
So pretty much when you have a
really good support player like with good comms,
he's basically leading because his comms are fucking. And we lose that. Obviously that fucks your entries over. It fucks a lot of the direction.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. We didn't talk about Billboard a whole lot. Billboard and Talon were like the IGLs, right?
Yeah.
And you see the problem there? I just named 2 IGLs.
Yep. Messed up support structure, like who has the final say when...
Who has the final say, and what are we going to do in this round, and why did we lose that round? Okay. Billboard's... I hate the way Billboard handled it, which is why I'm going to slander him the way I'm about to, okay? Billboard had a horrible attitude. He would literally deafen. Can you see my screen, Discord?
Oh boy, no.
If he's losing the argument, he'd deafen. This is a professional player. He would just deafen. He'd shut down. And then you'd have Talon. God bless Talon, because at least like Talon tried. At least Talon wouldn't deafen. I'll just put it like this: Talon didn't deafen. It's just like I understand Billboard. Like, keep in mind, Billboard was with the Onslaught team the whole time, right?
Yeah.
The whole little thing. So he's watching his team just explode the same way like I'm watching it, right? So maybe he didn't handle it well. He's young.
Yeah.
Whatever. But fuck. I've got this deafening IGL. I've got who's argumentative with everybody. I've got 9line. And then I've got an entry who's lost without Chap because Yellow and Chap worked really well together. And that's not just because they're both Asian, okay? But that's just how it was. They worked really well together. Yellow looked like a totally different player. Chap joining him, right?
So like sometimes that chemistry hits, man. Like shit.
Like I don't mean to make excuses, but like, come on now. How are we supposed to win a fucking game? How are we gonna win a round when all that shit's happening on our team, right? And everyone else is making 5 times what we're making, and everything else. It's like, damn. Of course we're gonna finish last.
Yeah.
You know?
What was it like playing that Prime EG? Because I mentioned it a little bit before we started recording, but like people look back on it now and they look at the Wikipedia and say, how good could EG have been? They didn't win anything meaningful. Like, they just have a bunch of silver medals. They always choked against G2. The laundry list of excuses, which like, yeah, they weren't the best team in the world, but they're still the second best. Like, talk to me about playing against this team, because like they're still fucking scary, right?
So how I described Flipside's nerdiness earlier, EG amplified that by like 10. God tier drones, God tier NVK was actually just ridiculous in the line meta for some reason. Well, I think it's because people had to sit still, you know, and they couldn't be like dynamic. Because I was a dynamic player at the time, right?
Yeah.
So I'm the type of guy I catch you off guard. I push you up when you're about to execute or whatever.
Yeah.
But when fucking Lion pops and EG has god tier drones, I think that was around the time you could like use 2 drones at the same time.
Yeah, that sounds about the time where you could actually have both out at once.
Yeah.
Which, for any listeners who were not playing at the time, originally you could only have 1 drone out per player on attack. And that iconically is the reason why Necrox was able to flank up main stairs in the Year 1 Season 3 finals against Playing Ducks, and flank Playing Ducks to win the post plant in the 2v2 to get NA their first ever international win, which Meepy is not happy about, probably to this day.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame him. But it's like, basically because it had been out like for a decent chunk of time at that point, but
so
they were one of the teams that was good at using multiple drones at once, right? Like, and just having a drone network. Like, people talk about the SSG drones or whatever, like now, or they used to, maybe a couple years ago. But like, EG's drones were it's like constantly, bro. You've been spotted, and then you've been spotted, or sometimes they wouldn't even ping you, like, because that's the thing, they were good at that too. They wouldn't even ping you, so they would. And this is before Z-ping, so they would just know what the fuck you're like.
What you're doing.
If you're trying to do something if you're trying to do anything outside the norm, they're literally already looking at it, and they've got guys who are good enough, like BC, and BC was a brick wall. Trying to take a gunfight at BC, like, no, it's just like they were just very difficult to pull bullshit off on, right? Yeah. And you combine the fact they are, on top of that, they have Lion. It's like
mad oppressive on attack. It's gotta be.
You can't, and they had really good synergy on defense too, like Canadian and like NVK. It's still something he does in Dark Zero to this day. Like, really good roam synergy. So you can't just carelessly hit the side or whatever, and you can't just it's like they're just a complete team in every way, and they're just frustrating. They tilt you, like, with just how they abuse mechanics. So it's just like, they were really good. I mean, they deserved to win something. They never fucking did, which is unfortunate. But
talk to me a little bit about playing against Prime NVK, because, like, this guy, justifiably so, but, like, he still got a bad rap from his comeback on Xset and, like, his time on One Shot. He was always, like, the statistical underperformer, and you're always going, you know, this isn't Prime NVK, like, he's past his prime, he's a little bit overripe. But, you know, back then, that's when NVK was good. So, like, talk to me about then, because he was a menace, and there's a reason people put stock in his name, even when he was playing on One Shot last year, right?
Yeah, so I don't want to speak for him too much, because he's got his own story. I mean, you should podcast him, bro. But let me tell you.
I've tried. I'll try again.
I mean, NVK he's disappeared off the grid, I guess. Yeah. But if I have to defend him a little bit, he played in the EG system, which I just explained to you is crazy. Like, you know everything. He's telling you they're doing the right attacks, they're doing the right everything. You're not being put in a position where you're gonna get shot in the back or trolled or sold or whatever. Like, I'm using a lot of epic gamer terms. I hope you guys understand what I'm saying. Basically, you're not put in a situation where you're on ice skates, right? If you're NVK, you're always in a favorable situation. You've always got favorable support. You've always got the right wall open. You got the right angles open. So you're just getting these kills. Like, that's how the game works. If you do that correctly, get kills, you look good.
Yeah.
You don't do that correctly, you look like a moron. It doesn't matter what team you're on, right? So NVK looked good in that system, and then the direct correlation is once he left EG and once EG literally left the game, I bet you that fucked with him a lot. You lose your org like that, like, that's crazy. I cannot be stated how crazy that is. And then also just, you know, you leave Canadian and you start sucking. I mean, look at SSG.
Yeah.
They lost Canadian and suddenly they're average. Fultz and Rampy are average. People are talking shit about Fultz like he's whatever when Fultz was a menace just because he didn't have Canadian no more. Think about it that way. NVK suffered from the same shit, in my opinion.
All right. Cool. So after Season 7, you're in you signed with Motivate, which was this fancy org, and it was most notable for the reason that it was owned by some famous baseball player. That's like the reason.
He wasn't famous, but he was a baseball player. He had baseball money.
Yeah, he had baseball money, and that was like a big deal. Everyone was like, "Oh shit!" And you played a few things. You know, you were playing for the Paris Major qualifiers. You were playing in the USN qualifiers, which I want to say you did well enough to actually qualify to go to a USN. Yeah.
No.
Oh no.
So this
Or
is what I'll
was that?
clarify. So I'll
Yeah.
clarify because this is when I entered. 2018 was like a strong year for me in general.
Yeah.
I gotta say, fuck, I was tearing it up. But DreamHack Austin, right? We had the same Prime EG I've been like hyping up. We almost beat them there too.
Yeah.
Like went 3 maps.
I think
And
that's
almost made it at a.
that's for
What's
one
that?
event they actually won. I think, if memory serves.
No, they lost to what's it called? They lost to Millennium.
Oh,
I remember,
really?
because I remember eating some hot chicken and watching the finals because we. I remember it was a good chicken place in Austin, but like, yeah, we. I mean, they were still in form, but it's like we almost beat them there.
Yeah.
Like that's how far the team had come from like Ronin to Motivate. We were getting paid more. We had, I mean, Billboard is still kind of a problem. Not gonna lie, like we couldn't like get rid of him, but
Yeah.
for the most part, we had better team cohesion once Nine left and we became Motivate. Like we were back to kind of being good again, and we almost made out of groups at that event, which like against EG, which would have been like that would have changed the fucking timeline. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and we almost beat. If you remember, Yaga and Skittles that disrupt. We had them in our group
Bolo.
too.
Like, it was like Yaga, Skittles, Bolo, Dot Dash, and Hyper. I want to say I can double check, but like it was.
I think you nailed it.
It was the young gun like Def Squad just out to ruin some poor professional team's bracket. Yeah. Oh, and it had Ghost. It had Skittles, Ghost, Hyper Yog, Dot Dash, and Bolo. Like, Jesus Christ, they took they won against Prime EG. Like
they sure did. And guess what? That same day we played them, like a couple hours later, almost beat them. I'm just telling you, it's like almost doesn't cut it in people's eyes for some reason, which is really sad to me. It hurts my feelings because I thought I did good, and people don't see it that way. They don't remember it this way. But we literally took them 3 maps. We took EG 3 maps. Motivate was like slowly becoming a for real team. I don't know if you saw like OGA Pit we played with all the NA Pro teams at the time because we had gotten relegated.
Yeah, I mean you placed 3rd. I remember watching a fair bit of it. Like you lost to Rogue and you lost to you lost to Rogue and you lost to EG. Like those are the 2 top dogs. If you're gonna lose to someone in NA, those are the teams to do it.
Yeah, we were getting skate kept by them. I felt like we were kind of in the middle of the pack, like in the power rankings if you wanted to do.
Yeah.
We were in the middle of the pack of a pro team, even though we were challenged to get the time technically because we got relegated.
Yeah.
9 line, but we were still in the mix like most of 2018.
You also did pick Chapstick back up. So
yeah,
it also shows how valuable he was, you know?
Yeah, like once he got relegated too. Like we all got relegated basically, and we just rebuilt the team in Challenger League that we were strong before Pro League Season 7. We rebuilt that team mid 2018 and we looked good. Like we looked good. Like I genuinely think that team looked.
You're placing better than Skies' Obey Alliance. You're placing better than Fox's Cloud9. Like Yeti's Noble Esports. Like England's not England, but Bex's Mouse Sports. Like shit, dude. You're winning legit matches and placing better than like some teams that people remember pretty fondly. So there's got to be something.
Because you know what's next, right? The wheels come off. Okay, because then we actually had to play. I mean, you talked about USN and how we almost qualified, almost did this, we got. The unfortunate thing is, while we were kind of on our upswing, we were playing teams that were also on theirs. So some key ones were Disrupt with Mo Digga. Mo Digga just came out of nowhere, and kind of Spades. Like these guys just were insane, just out of nowhere, right? Like,
yeah.
And they were right there with us. Like, in fact, they were whooping our hind end a little bit. But, and we knew we had to play them in the next, like, CL. They hadn't qualified yet, but it was like, we knew, oh, shit. CL is not going to be easy now because these fucking, like, these fuckers, they're good as shit. Like, but, I mean, we were still confident, but then, of course. Yeah. The wheels come off Season 8.
Yeah, and then talk to me about USN. Because USN, in hindsight, we can kind of say, like, this was just a real screwball event. Nobody was taking it serious. Like, pros talking about it. They would let, like, It's Timsy got to play for TSM as a super sub. It was like, the pros would let their friends play. Everyone was there just to go to the LAN, get wasted, and have a good time. So, how on top of like the evaluation is that summary?
Let me
Is that
stop you
true?
though.
Yeah.
Let me stop you though. You're talking about 2018, which I think
Okay.
at that point there were a lot. There's like different context there, but in
Okay.
2018, most of the teams were full strength. Like we had, well, no, EG had a sub, I think,
I think EG
but
had a sub for Geo or Canadian, but outside of that,
I think it's
it
Geo.
was
But yeah, like 2018, like most of the teams are full strength, right? And if there
okay.
were subs and it was whatever, it's because people got dropped, right? Like
Yeah,
so,
or visas because like you had to be American for this. I think was the big
yeah,
like
yeah, I think
hurrah.
that's what caused them. Yeah, so like basically that team I had for that, Holiday Nog and Oasis and Wild Doodle, Luminosity.
Yep.
This was before he was famous, by the way. He's like, that was my fuck. Doodle was my dog, man. Fucking, I fucking love that guy. Like, easily one of my favorite. Easily, no, he was my favorite teammate. Well, I love that guy. But the problem with that team was it was just a little too hodgepodge.
Okay.
Basically, it was just made up of like me and Yellow, like we're kind of a duo,
Yeah.
and then Doodle was like their sub at the time who got emergency subbed in. Again, this was before he was famous. He was in the slums, like he was just on the bench, like whatever. But
Yeah.
and then Oasis was just on the team. That it was just like this. It was basically a Challenge League team that picked up people that they thought were good from the previous CL season. So like we finished seventh, like me and Yellow finished seventh season 8 or whatever.
Yeah.
But as a pair, like as a fragging pair, I don't think we were like bottom tier or anything. I think that was just a really strong season, generally speaking. Like if you look at some of it, like it had like what achieved like basically the team that would become TSM. They had the Disrupt team I talked about,
Yep.
Elephant Gang, which was basically what turned into Sonics. It's
Yeah,
like
that's super. Well, that's pre-super, but like K9,
yeah,
Avian, Trippin, Ghost, Neptune.
well he
Like
actually left.
that's not a sleeper team. Like Ghost kind of fell off, but Trippin was nasty. Avian at this point was pretty nasty. K9, pre whatever happened to K9, like he was still a good player, and then Neptune's was
Yeah,
just always solid. Like
he
this
was a little
is
bit of a brick, like Neptunes, but I mean they were good. Like
yeah.
every team was good, and the
These
fact
aren't
that we
like
got picked
freebies.
up, like me and Yellow got picked up for that event, like kind of shows how much CL teams at the time valued us, like as players. Like we were good,
Yeah,
like you know what I mean. So it's like we were good enough to like maybe make a push at this land, but like the truth is, it was a bunch of pro teams again, all making way more than us, all expected to do more than us.
yeah.
We got slapped there, like and again, I didn't expect, we're not Cloud9 and Rogue. We're not making no sound. It's like I was still in school at the time. Again, I was grinding, but I wasn't able to just sit there and play Siege all day like most people. You know what I mean?
I
Like, so I
think
was
people
still,
underestimate just how much the like pro player buff works because like when you don't have to worry about rent or groceries and you can just dedicate more than 40 hours a week to something because you were already grinding an insane amount of time in the game, but then you just get that extra 20, 30, 40 hours. Like that's an insane boost, and that's why like being able to play professionally and like have that paycheck to guarantee more time is such a big deal for a lot of these players and a lot of these teams. That's why the discussion in this offseason is like, oh man, some orgs aren't paying their players during the offseason because they didn't qualify. Never gonna do
and
even worse. So that's
let me
why
just
it's a
say,
big deal.
even with some of the bougie, or not bougie would be the wrong word. Even with some of the ghetto orgs I used to play for, the truth is they would still play like off
Yeah,
season back then. So the fact that it's not happening now is,
kind of a big deal in
uh,
itself, right?
yeah, that is significant. But I guess if we want to get back to
Yeah.
where we're at in time, like 2018,
Yeah,
yeah,
I do wanna ask about Rogue because it is kind of topical. They did win against you in USN, but like this is kind of like what Flipside is kind of like where Rogue was because this is Slash Eclipse, Avian. These are like notable players, but they don't have a chip, right? Like Slash Hug, for example, people are gonna think, oh, you mean Beast Coast Slash Hug, that washed ass like couldn't frag for shit player? Like that's not how I remember this player. And playing against Prime Rogue, what was it like? Because they kind of remind me of EG, but like the North American equivalent of EG, where always placing second place, always a bridesmaid, never a bride, especially in international competition. Talk to me about it.
Now I will say, I think, because there was like a big three, I guess, or there was a
Yeah.
bunch of teams, but there were like distinct differences, right? Like flip side were the nerds, SSU is pretty nerdy, EG was like the perfect mix of nerd and aggressive, which is I think why they were better than the others.
Yeah.
And then like you know, who's the team we just talked about? Fuck,
Rogue.
it's like Rogue. Okay,
Yeah.
Rogue was like really loose, so they weren't really nerdy, and they were just really weird because they would like play really, especially when they added Vert for that event. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah.
that's when they
Shit,
added
I
Vert.
forgot they added Vert. Jesus.
Yeah, like which was a big deal because that like he's fucking nuts and he fit
Yeah.
their style because they're just like I don't know. I didn't think they were very like setup oriented. I guess they were just really opportunistic and almost like they weren't taking things seriously in a way. Which is weird because they would still win. I know that
Yeah.
sounds crazy, but like basically, like for example, you'd scrim them, they'd run out, their attacks are kind of like whatever. Like you could get away with like the shit I would never get away with against EG
Yeah.
or SK or whoever. You could do that shit against Rogue, like it would work. Like and you could 1-for-1 and like do whatever and like take whatever off them just because they weren't ready for stuff and they weren't. I don't know. It's like they were missing that like.
So
That immunity to bullshit. How is that? But
So-
they were missing
so-
the immunity to bullshit. To be honest, that's
kind
that was
of
it.
like last season's EG or not EG LG in a sense. Like they have that like aggressive explosiveness and like they're always fighting and they're always in your face, but you know they're not super structured as a result, or like they're kind of have openings as a result of that, or is that off base?
I just think they would have really benefited from like a good strategic coach. Like let's say even like someone like MEP at the time, if they had
Yeah.
joined that team, they've been totally different. I think they would have won a lot more.
Yeah, because
The-
they had
the topic-
easily shuttle Eclipse.
Yeah, they were good. Like they were good, but they were
Ranger.
just really just spontaneous and inconsistent, to
Okay.
be honest. And it was very weird. It was hard to read, but it was also just like, you could get away with stuff. And I think that's why they just weren't as tight. They just weren't as tight knit as like an
Okay.
EG was.
Yeah, which kind of explains why they were almost there, but never quite at that EG level. So
I don't think their structure was as good.
yeah, going into 2019 now, we're getting towards the tail end of your playing career. We've got the SI Open Quals. We've got USN 2019, which, from the sounds of it, is the one where people kind of realized, hey, wait a minute, this is kind of a giant party, except for EG when Canadian got on, or SSG when Canadian got on there. And then, like, we've got the Allied Minor, and we've got the 2019 Six Major. Do they really call it that? Why isn't it just Raleigh or some shit? What?
That's a good question. I think it's just Six Major.
Is it
It's
even
probably just
Raleigh?
Wikipedia. I think it was Rally, yeah.
It's got to be Raleigh because it's TSM and SSG. Yeah, that's got to be Raleigh.
Yeah.
Why do they call it? Why? What is this naming
Dude.
structure, dude?
Yeah. Don't get into that. But I'll say this. You're shit talking the naming structure. You talk about SI quals back then and USN quals or whatever. Like, okay. Back then, I'm just going to straight up say it. The qualing system was so much better, especially for SI. You would play like, basically it was like a fucking league in terms of how many games you'd play.
Oh, shit,
You'd
yeah.
play like 8. You'd play like 16 something games in the span of 2 weeks.
Yeah, no.
And that was just open quals to decide like the seeding for the next part of it, which was usually like best of threes and like double elim best of threes at that. Like it was such a good.
yeah, that
like-
really separates the wheat from the chaff and makes sure like we are getting the best teams.
Yeah, it really like melted down the teams well, I think, and that's why we had teams all the time. And it was just like, and it was also good just for random people to play, right? Like everyone could play that, and you'd feel like you get a lot of practice as a team, get a lot of games in.
Yeah.
You could see where you could go. You could go to SI, like it's like, I thought that was so much better back then.
Yeah,
and I
man.
don't know why that has just gotten worse over time. It's very strange.
I mean,
To be honest.
that's how 92 Dream Team came in.
Yeah.
7-1 through open quals, and then they get to go to closed quals, I think. Probably should.
Yeah, there was like you do that and you go to like
Closed
this
quals.
double win bracket.
Yeah.
It's kind of confusing like Wikipedia, but the point is at the time it was competitive.
Yeah.
You got a lot of games in,
And it was solid.
a lot of opportunity for casters too.
Yeah.
Like it's insane that we have backtracked from that.
Yeah, and I think that also just like made for a really good community touch point. I know this isn't talking too much about the competitive aspect, but like, man, I know it's like such a minor thing, but just losing the SI open quals are just streams that Intero would do. Like that's a kind of cultural touchstone in a sense that we're kind of losing, and that's like, it's not game breaking or anything, but that's just like a cultural touchstone that we're just losing from now on. And that's kind of a shame. Not a big deal, but it's a loss that should be acknowledged.
I think it is more earth shattering than you're saying, because okay, for example, I saw like this Reddit post with dude was like, how do you get into the comp scene?
Oh, jeez. Right? Okay.
And at least for me, I got into it because I guess I skipped that part of my story. Like, Kicks streamed after like Orbit, and this was way old Orbit. Like they lost at some LAN, and he was streaming, and I was like, and he's like answering questions and talking and being personable, and like basically showing off like that he's a person. He's it's not just some random player playing, right? This is a person that's cool and chill and whatever. And it's like
also one of the best players in the world casually, but
yeah, it's like, but you see what I'm going with that? It's like when I can actually put like something funny or like something relatable or something you can fuck with, like like I know this person and they're cool and they're not just some player that's playing on a random team on the stream right now. Like, because the truth is, I get on Rainbow. I go sometimes. I try to watch the other regions. It's just like, who are these people? They don't. Most of them don't stream. Most of them don't have any like.
You get a webcam and that's it.
They have a webcam and they're just like, it's like okay, but back then it's like 92 Dream Team and like the people who would cast on that, like someone like Young, like it's like Young gains fans from that, like unironically, like
bro, he was fucking hilarious.
Yeah, like it's someone like 92 Dream Team. They're also getting fans from people like watching them just kind of appear out of nowhere, right? Like
the flying
and
V,
you're
like
seeing
it's
how they're
just
playing.
Iconic. I mean, it gets put in the Pojo Digest. Like it's just this.
Yeah, it gets put place like clipped, and it's just like that. I don't know. We don't have Nesh now, and it's like, how are you supposed to know, like, who these guys are, and how are you supposed to like
care about it?
Why should you care? You know what I mean? Like, people literally became fans of 92 Dream Team off that. Like, and that shouldn't be like undersold. Like, there's.
Yeah.
I imagine they got hundreds of followers off that, and then hundreds turn to 1,000. It's like we don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And it's there's no opportunities for it anymore. It sucks.
Yeah. Well, here's hoping the major, or I guess the open quals are done for this stage, but hopefully next stage we got something, or like if there is to be minor events in this off season, please have there be minor events in this off season. Like we cannot have 5 months of dead space. Like if we do, we need to have that kind of open quals where we just have like people chilling, watching games and shooting the shit, because I think it's important. Like, it just reminds me of the No Majors Club for CSGO, where it's like Richard Lewis just shooting the shit with industry veterans, just talking. Oh, and by the way, there's like Astralis playing Team Liquid in 2019. Like, just a small game, It's kind of cool. There's some high level CS going on, but like also you want to hear this funny story about when Jackie's hut fell over? Like it's just good. It's just good fun.
It's stuff that makes you realize that they're people, and like I want to be friends with this, and it's like I forget what the term's called, but it's like when because let's be honest, most of the pros don't necessarily know the people.
Yeah, parasocial relation.
Yeah, it's like that's actually so important. And I know it's weird as fuck, but it's like people like see them as their friends. That's not like a bad thing. Yeah, but it's like, oh, you see, oh my boy, what's his face? People literally say that, like, oh my boy, fuck, let me just name somebody. My boy JJ Blast is playing on the SFCL. I'm gonna tune in and watch. Like, obviously that's like a much smaller scale, but it's like it used to be a much bigger scale. Like people would tune in to see their favorite person playing.
I
Right
remember
now,
tuning into CCS to watch SK play, and I was just like, T2 isn't my jam because I'm also trying to pass class for once, but you know, it's SK. I want to see Pojo. I want to see Pojo make
yeah,
plays.
like see
So,
Poach. I want to see. Like, for me, I want to see Canadian. Like, cause I love
dude,
Canadian. Like, you know what
I
I mean?
mean,
But
and
that
that's
relationship's so
lasted.
important.
That's lasted into even the current day. Like Canadian at SI just always swarmed as soon as he shows up. Like there's just a swarm of people, and you're like, God damn.
Yeah,
So
like
yeah,
yeah, I just got some good memories, man. It just
yeah.
triggered my brain. But yes,
So I do wanna talk about some other stuff. I got two big topics that I want to talk about. The first is kind of like that the path Bolo has taken, because I think you're someone with the experience and kind of a like, especially now that you've done some broadcast work, you're kind of able to take a step back and be like, look at the narrative. Bolo was the first, well, not the first, but he was the first successful and majorly successful content creator to pro player. Like we had Serenity, we had Serenity 17, and he did it first season. We had Noted, we had Noted from Brazil, but he also kind of would just show up in a random pro scene, play for a little bit, be average, and then dip into the next
I
game.
still do shit Noted does used to do. I still do it in my games.
Yeah,
Little melee at the bottom of the barricade crawl. It still works.
yeah.
It still works in this day.
Yeah, I
7 years later.
mean, like he had that good game sense, but like I don't know what it was. I guess he just didn't have a mentality, or he didn't have that
No,
passion to
he had
commit.
good tricks, and the thing is, someone like that. I mean, because I was the loser in Bolo's story. Bolo was the winner,
Yeah,
but Bolo farmed me multiple times. Okay, and one of those times was like CCS or something, right?
yeah.
And I think what makes Ray Bolo special, right? I guess was that he doubled down on how ridiculous he would play. Because
Okay.
so let's say someone like Noted, right?
Yeah.
He's psychotic. He's melee and barricades and doing whatever. He would never do that in a match.
Oh, okay.
That's where he would suck because he tried to play like a pro, and Serenity would suck too. And you could watch the POV videos too. See exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Serenity he had a POV of him playing a pro league match. He's playing his set strat and he's playing just completely different, right? He's a different player on a pro league match.
Yeah.
And he's in ranked, he's just doing whatever. He's playing cab, he's running around doing it. Difference with Bolo and like these other people who are content creators and whatever, because you see what they do in their videos, right? Like
Yeah.
content creators, they get away with bullshit and they whatever. But Bolo would do that shit in a match. Bolo
Okay.
would be Bolo like in a match to this day, right? And I
Yeah.
think where a lot of them fall off is and a lot of people in general, I don't know. It's like that's why sometimes I get really criticistic. Is that a word?
Critical. I think
I,
I think it's being really critical.
I get really critical of how some teams play because
Yeah.
it's like I know for a fact that people are not playing what they are. Bolo was you'll never see Bolo hiding in a corner or whatever just because it's a match. Like Bolo is just Bolo.
Yeah.
He's getting the same ridiculous kills that he would get any other time. At least when I played against him, motherfucker, he was the same guy. It's like playing a ranked match, but it was a comp match, and
Yeah.
it was. And the thing is, people, have you ever had like pros be like, "Man, this feels like ranked. Man, this feels like ranked." Like if you
Yeah.
ever watch like the FPL streams, and this is
Yeah.
just ranked, bro. This is just ranked, bro.
Yeah. I mean, like,
That's what it was like playing as Bolo. It was like this is fucking ranked, but he's actually fucking good. It's like I think that's like a coping mechanism. People would just be like mad they're getting shit on, and
Yeah.
they can't comprehend it that maybe this guy just plays how he's supposed to play
and he's just
all the time.
cracked.
and you just play like a pussy when it matters. Because I'm guilty of it too. Like I told you, I used to be the type of player I'd try to catch people off guard or whatever. When it came against EG, I'm hiding in the corner. I'm getting lion scanned, right?
Yeah.
Instead of being me and sticking him. Bolo would just
Did
always,
not care.
always on 100, bro. And that's, I guess, and it's not like he was on 100 because he was hype. He's just constantly, you know what I mean? He's just playing to his potential.
Yeah. It's just how he plays, and like, I think you often hear people say that his potential was tied to his motivation. If he's motivated, best player in the world. But like, whether or not he really had it all the time was the question. And I mean, hey man, you still had enough motivation to lift the hammer, so that's
I think
something.
I think he was always like motivated. I think his issue is, I don't know, just what happened with TSM.
Fair enough.
I'm sure there will be a 30 for 30 on it later. Because again, you're gonna have to fish one of these TSM guys out in an interview.
I mean,
I think,
I'm gonna try. Damn it, dude! Like I'm
think,
working my way through Valandra list. I'm trying to go up the tiers until I get to the T1 players and coaches proper.
I mean, I don't know. Hopefully that works out. But I think like, I don't know. I think he was always like motivated. I think it was just like, you know, when you know that your org's leaving and you know this and that's happening.
Fuck it, content creator life for me.
Yeah, I mean,
can't blame him.
You've heard how much he makes, or I'm sure you've heard like rumors.
Guesstimates. I mean, like if Super's taking 10K a month, and he's very public about that. Super's making 10K a month, just off Twitch streams and everything. That's not counting what he does for Visonics or any sponsorship deals. Just pure stream numbers and subscribers and donations. 10K a month. Bolo, as far as streaming goes, is a much bigger personality than Super. Like, it doesn't take a lot of like imagination.
If you think 10K a month's unfathomable,
yeah,
then whatever Bolo makes has to be just something that us mortals cannot fathom on this juncture.
Yeah,
it's just I don't blame him for walking away, bro.
No, I think there's a big draw.
I'm surprised he do it sooner, to be honest. Shit.
I mean, he lifted the hammer, man. Like, he took his crown. He did what Stewie did, but ended on a much better note. And I think that's also very interesting. It's just kind of a parallel that we kind of have now with CS, because that's the second game I watch a shit ton of, is like Siege and Counter-Strike. And Counter-Strike had Stewie, and Stewie 2K, the smoke criminal, and he'd always run through the smokes and be that crazy pug star. But he wasn't that when he won his major. And then as time went on, after the Grand Slam run, he kind of like fell off, and he fell off hard. And Bolo kind of like won everything he wanted to. He won the Invitational, and then he kind of retired with grace almost. Like he saw TSM was leaving and kind of took an evaluation, said, I probably definitely have a few more years in me, just talent-wise, before I become an irrelevant level of player, talent-wise, and mechanics. But I'm just going to bow out now. So he kind of left on that high, which I find interesting, at least. But I'm always stuck on those like narratives and everything. So
yeah, I mean, what would you do? Leave the hero, or stay around long enough to play on Mirage or something?
Yeah, like
just get roasted into oblivion.
Like, yeah, like I would just
I'd be out too. Yeah, like literally. Oh my god, I'm glad you said that. The amount of Slash slander. Listen, dude. Slash. There's decent criticism for Slash. Like when I met him, and or like I played with him or whatever at USN.
Yeah.
It was like an after party. He told a story about just how casually like he kind of just approached things. Like he had a really chill approach overall, which obviously worked for him at the time.
Yeah.
But it's just like. The fact that people see Slash as just total shit.
Yeah.
That fast. Like it hasn't even been. I don't know. In my eyes, I don't see 5 years as that much time. Like,
no.
I think that's like if we're gonna look back on this, it's like a blur. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how does someone in like 2019, right? 2018, he's a
best
legend
in the game. Yeah.
Fan favorite, legend. 2 years later. He's like on OHG, you can feel the fall off starting, right? Or whatever in results. All of a sudden, 2022, he's a piece of shit and he sucks.
He still dropped 19 in a match that year too, which yeah.
Oh, he sucks. He needs to be off this team. He can't lead. He can't. It's just like that's crazy to me. And I mean, it's just it goes to show you esports.
Time travels faster here, man. Hyperbolic.
I mean, it's just sports in general, though. Like for the NFL, like they say, it stands for not for long. And that's a major sport. Imagine esports, which is a much shorter, and a much smaller, cosmos.
Yeah, and
for long, bitch, people will call you good one day and forget you the next. Forget you exist.
I've seen a lot of people equate esports 1 year in the real world. One season is 6 months in esports. if you would take a year to see if a football team or a soccer team is successful, you take 3 to 6 months in esports because like time travels that much faster. Like,
That's nuts. That is nuts to
yeah,
think about. Like,
I do want
uh,
to, I do want to get your mind on the use of statistics because I know this is a pain point for me. And I remember when you were doing that Beast Coast Sonics review, you kind of went off about like the use of statistics in narratives and analysis. So I kind of want to just have you like talk about it because at least personally, I think statistics and like looking at entry differentials and ratings, especially ratings, but all those stats, the cost, the KD, all of that stuff. I think it's useful when used to accentuate a point to say, I think this is a part of this player's game that is good or bad. And then you toss out a stat and you say, look at this like supporting evidence. But I think as a community, we've gotten to the point which I blame the rating for, like the total rating, which is also something CSGO and like Valorant have an issue with like the HLTV ratings, is like people take that number, that like 1.02 rating, and they just base everything off that, where that's not how it should be used, right? So talk to me about the use of stats, because I'm sure as an analyst and as someone who tries to like tell a story on the desk, I'm sure this is probably more annoying for you than it is for me just listening to it, right?
it is incredibly lazy. Now, now I know some statistician who works on his sheet is gonna be pissed what I just said. Okay, but listen to this, and listen to me good. All you're doing, like right now, if I have a T3 matchup on my other monitor,
Yeah.
and I'm just saying, I'm just doing this. Oh, Freak died first. Oh, this guy got a 3K. Oh, I'm not really looking at the game. I just like, I noticed that happened. Oh, he got a 3K. Oh, and I just type it in my little sheet, and then the sheet goes 1.92 rating. I mean, usually, to be honest, like if it's a really good game or a really bad game, yeah, it's accurate.
Yeah.
The problem is the fucking middle, where there's so much you could go into detail on, right? There's so much shit that you could talk about, and you could say like, wow, this guy does well, or whatever. Oh, and fuck cost too.
Oh.
It's all the stats blur together. It's like I don't know, and I don't know the term for it, but it's like basically in the little midpoint range of just most players.
Yeah.
And where you can really find out the little quirks about the players and so many things.
Yeah.
Like their play style, whether their kills actually matter. Like no one tracks that. Like again, it's just like,
yeah,
or maybe they do and it's not.
Everyone talks about impact list kills, but like because everyone keeps their formula a black box so that no one can steal it, we don't know if the super rating calculates impactless kills or not. Like, does that empty 4K in a post plant where people were literally throwing their lives away count or not? Nobody knows.
Does this lurk across the map in an attack where it makes no sense to lurk? Like, how do we? What I want to know, for example, lurkers are a perfect example of this.
Yeah.
How do we determine who's the biggest troll lurker? What stat tells you that? What stat can you seriously look at and say this is 100% true? Like, just watch the fucking game and take notes.
Yeah.
Do the dirty work. Because to me, that's hard. To me, you actually, and I'm not saying just watch the game on stream.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, literally watch every player multiple rounds over, like, or rather multiple times, like in the same round. So let's say one round you watch, like I'm just use this T3 game as an example. Let's say I'm watching Freak Goodnight. I'm gonna watch him entry. I'm gonna watch the science behind that entry, all the drawing that goes into it, what the defenders are doing, how they're walking around. You can't like deduce all that from stats. In my opinion, there's been so many times just from the NAL this past stage where I see someone's stats or whatever, and I'm like, wow, huh? And it totally goes against what I was actually watching. Like, for example, Achieved. Achieved still has one of the worst stats in the league, but I don't see, like, from when I actually watch Achieved in the round,
he's
I don't
not
see anything that
dead weight.
No, but what'll happen, and I didn't do this shit when I was on the desk, not on my desk. not on my desk. But what motherfuckers will do is they'll just see, oh, he had a .4, and they'll just instantly shit talk him. They'll instantly use it as like oh, he needs to step up and do this and that. Oh, what step up in what way? You don't even know, because all you're doing is typing numbers.
Yeah.
You don't know anything about what he should or shouldn't be doing, because you're just looking at his rating and saying, oh, he sucks, or oh, he went 0-4 on entry, but you failed to account for the fact that maybe his entries didn't entry at all. And, it's like, and he just had to walk in or something in some crazy situation. I mean, there's so many examples.
And like, what about, oh, he threw this one piece of utility and it drew away rotation, or it changed the line of sight.
Not tracked at all. Like, how can you track someone's utility usage from stats? How do you know? Some motherfucker could be holding their grenades every round or throwing them at nothing. Like, for example, Skies is a great example. Skies has the worst Ying usage ever. Maybe it shows in his rating because he is one of the worst rated, sure. But you would never, like, I don't feel like that's talked about enough unless you physically watch the game and say, hey, this guy plays Ying and he sucks at it. Like, he literally flashed nothing. Like, and I'm not making this up, like, Skies sucks at Ying. It's atrocious. The guy cannot Ying shit. But you never know just looking at CGG. You would just see, oh, he plays Habana. But CGG doesn't tell you what he's been playing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't tell you, like, oh, he's been the flex player that's allowed to pick what he wants to play. It doesn't tell you that. You need to watch the game. You know, so that's where I think it's just fucking, I think it's fucking bullshit. Like, to be honest, I think people that do stats, like, good job, like, whatever, like, congrats.
I think it's important, and it, like, it can tell you some really, like, interesting information.
Like, I think the extremes stats can be useful. Like, if someone has, like, let's say they have the worst defending rate in the league or something, or if they have the worst conversion rate on their entries or something, and it's by a significant margin. That's the other. I think the margin has to be significant, right?
Yeah,
that's why I keep emphasizing that midpoint. All that stuff's whatever, but if it's like a significant margin, like, I don't know, let's say someone says, oh, he has a 45% this.
Like, I think a good example
is like 50. It's like, who cares? I think
two good examples from last year's Challenger League are actually like Tragical and Woos. Because Tragical, highest rated going into stage at the end of stage 1 of Challenger League, but he had a shit attitude. Like, the stats don't tell you how his attitude is for as a teammate. So, like, he didn't get picked up, even though he clearly has some mechanics, and the stats back him up. Well, if stats are all that matter, why the fuck isn't Tragical in Pro League right now working with fucking Big Bag Nadian himself?
Yeah, I mean, or like, according to that, yeah, Tragical should have took like fucking he was someone who had a bad season for like at that time.
Yeah, he should have taken Spiff's spot. Honestly, like, Tragical's top-rated Challenger League, bro. Except that's not all there is. Or like, another good example is Woos. When working with Mr. B, Woos was plus 28 on entry. And I didn't realize that until I was starting to do stats work, looking at Mr. B for prep for an interview, and I saw that on CGG, and I was just like, the fuck do you mean plus 28 on entry? Like, yeah, he won a lot of entry engagements. I didn't realize it was that many. Like, and I think that's, like, but that's a different story than Tragical. That's just, like, an extreme where you go, God damn! Whereas Tragical, it's, like, just highest rated, doesn't tell the entire story, and it's not until you talk to B and just say, hey, why didn't you keep Tragical if he was so good? And he says, because he's Mr. B and he's just going to be honest, oh, shit attitude. I brought less to the team because of his attitude than any of his mechanical ability could have brought. And that's where you go, okay, yeah, no, this makes more sense now. So,
and that's the other thing with mechanics. Again, when people, and it goes it's the argument oldest time. Because, for example, people will shit talk old mechanics, like the old pros or whatever, right?
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is, at that level, you get to a point, and I can't believe, I don't think it's people that have played, like, at high elo or anything, because, to be honest, most people, like, they can Ferrari peak. You know what I mean? Most people, when they have a drone or something, they're going to get the kill. Like, most people, when, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, they have a spawn peak, and someone's not looking at the spawn, they get the spawn peak.
Yeah.
It's just like, at what point is everyone literally just a clone? And what it really comes down to, everyone's a mechanical clone. Everyone can do the same shit given the right situation, or everyone will die to the same thing given the wrong situation. At what point is it literally irrelevant to talk about how good someone is? And is it better to start talking, and this is where it's like, this is hard, this is difficult. This requires some brains. This requires a brain stem. To actually watch the game and say, well, he's doing this because of this specific little thing. Not just because he's good. Because that's why it's like, I think that's shit. I think that is so fucking lazy to just say, oh yeah, this guy's just so good. He just takes over the game. How is he taking over the game? What did he do?
Did he get aggressive in pressure situations? Did he like ignore utility? How did he take over the game? What did he do? What rules did he break? Is
it the team play style? Is it how the team uses the utility? Is it how they use their operators? What operators they pick? What operators they don't pick?
Yeah.
Million things you could talk about than just saying his stat looks good, so he must be good.
Yeah.
And fuck that. I don't do it. I'm gonna be honest. I don't use stats my analysis at all. I just watch the game. I take good points or bullet points of like technical things that I think went good. And if it was something where the guy actually did just, because there are people who like are special mechanically, like not to discredit mechanically, like super good people, and people when they have good rounds, like. But
I think there's rounds and
that doesn't happen every that doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah. Like you can look at Spoit and be like, all right, something's different here. He like breaks the rules a little bit, but you're not going to turn around and say, "Oh, Lax is like mechanically strong or weak." Like he gets the job done, and that's all that's needed.
Let me put it like this: if let's say someone has a round like that, I call out that round. This guy just went. That was just ridiculous. He just won fights he shouldn't have, and he won the round that way. Like, and I call out that round, that specific round. I don't say the whole game. I don't use the. Because it's possible the whole game, wasn't all that. Maybe he was just walking into bullets. Maybe he was just walking carelessly into angles, right, and dying. But he had one good round where he had 4K and he looked good. Like, I don't know. I think it's much better to explain the context. That's why I focus on. I don't focus on fucking them. I don't I love Jesse. Jesse's awesome. But I think it works better when there's one guy that.
There's the stats man and the more eye test guy, because that way you can kind of balance it out. I found last year's broadcast kind of rough, because no diss to the talent, because
you're not alone.
Jacob and Jesse, smart guys, great guys. Like having met Jacob, super good guy, super nice guy. But when you have two people who base their analysis off of stats and for the most part off of stats, you get some very bland desks, because it's just, well, the numbers say this and the numbers say that, so the numbers said blah, and here's your number soup, and it's it doesn't make for entertainment, and we are still doing entertainment stuff, so you gotta say, but fuck the stats. I think he's going to go nuclear. I think this guy's going to shit the bed. I think the map bans say this, and the narrative says that, and, create some entertainment. And when you have somebody saying fuck the numbers and someone saying listen to the numbers, that can create some interest. Whereas if you just have only numbers, that's when it gets real bland.
It creates some discombobulation, which I think is good. I think that's entertaining. Like you said, and it is entertainment. If I say, this motherfucker didn't drone shit, this guy just walked around the map, no drone Jerome, that's way funnier than saying, well, Gunner is 2-10 on the entry, and he needs to pick it up.
Yeah.
The fuck? Say, this motherfucker's solo pushing, because he does. Gunner does solo. Well, they kind of fixed it with, I don't know if you saw, the interview where he was like, Geo's system is what changed that. But before that, they were just bot walking around solo.
Yeah.
Right. What, that's much more fun to talk about. It's fun for me to talk about right now. It makes me hype. Yeah. Because it's dude, they were just crouch walking around and they look shit, but that's why they sucked. That's why he's 2-10.
Yeah.
And that's why he's inconsistent. That's fun to talk. I think just saying he's 2-10, boo-hoo, fuck you.
Yeah.
Talk about why. Yeah. Sorry, that's a
no. I love it, because I'm in the same boat, man. I very much am in the I don't care about the entry differential, because what happened this round? Oh, he had no drone. to help him out, so he had to solo push because the rest of his team was just sitting around waiting for a hard wall to be opened. Oh, well, if he's pushing alone into someone who had a Valcam on him, yeah, he's going to lose with no info versus someone with info. So, like, do you really count that as a bad entry, or is that bad teamwork, you know? Stats don't care, but, like, that's a narrative.
How many times does an actually get, like, someone like Merc, perfect example. Oh, my fucking God. People act like Merc's shit. Like, Merc's bad or something.
Do you see how much map control that dude takes? Like,
exactly.
He says, this is your map? This is my map. This is mine now.
There's some people, like, for example, would you put, just because Woos went plus whatever on entry, would you replace fucking Merc with Woos?
No. I think...
Just because of a stat? Are you nuts?
No.
So why are we bringing it up on the fucking desk? Like, are you...
Yeah.
It's like, watch the game, you'll see Merc does a lot of good things. He may just die like an idiot sometimes, but guess what?
He also takes a lot of... Yeah, exactly. I think that's what it is.
I wouldn't want to play against that myself. I don't care what his numbers are. Guess what? You think the players think about that shit? You think fucking anybody that's playing this Merc is like, oh man, he's -4 on entry.
Yo, I'm gonna wide swing Merc. He's -6 on entry, bro.
I'm +2. He's -5. So I should... No one does that shit. If you do that, you're gonna get fucking, like...
Bro, imagine trying to pull that shit on Bolo. You're like, oh, Bolo is -4 this game. Oh, he fell off. I'm gonna wide swing his ass. He's gonna put you in the dirt so quick, dude. Like, dude.
Bolo is -7 at this stage, so, like, I like my shit. Like, what? No one thinks like that in the moment.
Yeah.
It's, everyone's a beast. Everyone's this and everything. And then, again, it comes down to the technical stuff, and that's where it's, my job is funny, because I get to talk about how this didn't work this way, or did it, and then why are you looking at
that's where it gets interesting.
It's a waste of time. So that's why I don't track them. You ain't gonna catch me tracking no damn stat.
I think it's important for map bans, but even then, you can just follow tendencies. You don't have to follow exact numbers.
Yeah, I will say I do track the
map bans, but I feel like that's different.
Yeah, sometimes we look at Wikipedia, I just be like, oh, they banned this
every time.
The past 3 months.
That's their permaban. Neat.
Yeah, like, and I don't know. That's like standard, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about player stats.
I'm talking about in-game stats as well, because that's like where the real analysis paralysis is coming in, at least from my point of view. All right, we've been running for a fair bit of time here. I've been having a blast. I'm not sure about you, but to close out, anything you want to say? Any plans for the future? You know, creating content. I saw those VOD reviews. I saw some short videos. You know, you've been on that content grind just a little bit.
So I don't want to leak like too much. I'm sure no one will give a shit, but you know, I'm hoping there's some good stuff for T3 that has been in the pipeline for a minute now. That's hopefully gonna be something I'm gonna be a part of again. Okay. And
I've been hearing some rumblings myself, but I'm not sure what you've heard. I'm not sure what I've heard.
Yeah, so I just say this. A lot of people are saying there's not much to look forward to. There's no events. I think there's gonna be something that's coming. People need to be a little patient. That'll be fun. I hope to be involved in that. Yeah. Like, and you know, the VOD reviews. I've done a little bit of those, but the real issue with that is the replays always break so fast.
Oh my god, dude!
Like I wanted to do like a series where I just follow a player and specifically talk about, again, the little context they faced throughout the season and why they may have came to the rating that the casual person may see. And then I would, you know, do that. But it was hard because the replays are gone already.
Yeah.
And I don't want to roll my game back or, like, it ain't that serious. So I might start doing that for the major, actually. So I might start, you know, seeing who's a bum at the major or seeing who's the true beasts. And
Cookiez is on #FraudWatch. You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the pipeline for now, because obviously there ain't a whole lot Blast related for a minute. So, yeah.
All right.
That's what the cookie has in the oven, guys.